She burst into laughter and plucked a feather from the guard's hat, believing her money entitled her to indulge any whim. But the unflinching guard unexpectedly broke his ironclad protocol, and his response left the crowd frozen in shock. What followed not only shattered the tourists' arrogance but also completely turned the day on its head. And it all began like this. It was a typical foggy day near Buckingham Palace. The crimson tunics and majestic bearskin hats of the royal guards stood as a timeless symbol of British heritage, faithfully preserved for centuries. Visitors flocked to the gates. Some snapped photos, others smiled politely, while many simply tried to capture a piece of English history through their lenses. Guardsman Jonathan McFarlane had been stationed at his usual post for 2 hours. Everything was proceeding as expected. His rifle was held firmly, his proud posture unyielding, and his expression calm despite the cries of the crowd. "Discipline and honor," he repeated to himself. "Never succumb to provocation." Suddenly, Jonathan's attention was drawn to a raucous group entering his line of sight. At their center was a young woman with an eccentric hairstyle and a selfie stick in hand. Judging by the way she commanded attention, it was clear she fancied herself the star of her own blog. Seconds earlier, murmurs of disapproval had already begun to ripple through the crowd. "This is inappropriate. They're being so loud. These tourists have no respect. They think paying for tickets gives them the right to do whatever they want." The young woman, who would later become infamous as Tourist Dolly, was constantly shifting around, searching for the coolest angle. Speaking in loud, impeccable English with a thick American accent, she yelled, "Hey guardsmen, salute for my followers. I brought my money here. You should be thanking me on behalf of your royal family." Jonathan did his best to remain unresponsive. Yet, the sharp laughter and aggressive attention from the tourists were beginning to weigh on him. Some in the crowd shook their heads sympathetically, while others pulled out their phones, eager to film the guardsman's unyielding resolve. And then, for the first time, Dolly reached for his hat. "Oh, wow! Is this real fur? And this feather?" she exclaimed. "Must be super rare." A flicker of warning flashed in Jonathan's eyes, but his body remained as still as a statue. Restraint was his duty. The crowd held its breath, watching the scene unfold with growing tension. No one yet knew how dramatic and eventful the rest of this day would become. Minutes passed, but the outrageous behavior of the tourists only escalated. After recording a quick selfie video, Tourist Dolly began circling around the guardsman, shouting, "Friends, look, he doesn't even react. That's what they call British stiffness." One of her companions, encouraged by the laughter of onlookers, started tossing small coins at the guard's feet. "Maybe he'll smile for a tip?" A few members of the crowd began voicing their indignation. Judging by the murmurs, the scene was shocking to many. "The world is going to hell, no respect for tradition anymore. We used to take pride in the guards, and now they're treated like clowns. Who does she think she is? This isn't a circus." Jonathan McFarlane remained utterly immobile. His hands, shoulders, and gaze seemed carved from stone. Yet, deep inside, he felt a simmering anger, not for himself, but for the honor of the royal guard, his second family. And then Tourist Dolly crossed the line. She sprang toward the guardsman and, like a souvenir hunter, yanked the white plume from his hat. The crowd gasped in unison. Within moments, several people began uploading videos to social media with scandalous headlines like, "Shock, Tourist Humiliates Guardsman." Someone shouted, "Hey, give it back! That's a symbol of his service. Aren't you ashamed?" But Dolly merely shrugged, holding the trophy mockingly in her hand. Whether she was desperate for more views on her blog or just ignorant, no one could say for sure. But in the eyes of the crowd, she had undoubtedly crossed a line. A heavy silence fell over the scene, as if everyone was waiting for justice to be served. The tense silence was suddenly broken by the soft, trembling voice of a child. "Sir, please help." A boy, no older than 7, was pressed against the iron gates, pleading for assistance. Nearby, one of Dolly's companions had taken to mocking an elderly man, a veteran of the Royal Air Force, who was quietly asking for alms. Waving a handful of cash, the tourist jeered, "Where's your ticket, old man? Royal benefits, huh? You should be able to afford it." Jonathan could take no more. Protocol demanded unflinching composure, but true honor called for the defense of the vulnerable. Stepping forward with measured authority, he broke his silence. "Stand down!" His voice thundered like cannon fire, freezing everyone in their tracks. Even tourist Dolly stopped dead, her mockery silenced by sheer astonishment. The guardsman had broken his post, but it was a necessary act, one of compassion and valor, to protect the veteran and the boy. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Spectators, both in person and those watching the moment unfold on their phones, began voicing their outrage at the tourist's behavior. "That's a real hero, breaking protocol for the sake of kindness. Courage and honor. That's what our guardsmen are all about." With the confidence of justice on his side, Jonathan turned his attention to Dolly. She was still clutching the stolen feather, seemingly hesitant to relinquish her hot content for the live stream. But her expression betrayed uncertainty, as if the weight of her actions was finally dawning on her. "Miss," Jonathan said, advancing toward her with deliberate steps, his voice calm but unyielding. "You've not only disrespected me, but the entire tradition I represent. Please return what belongs to the Royal Guard." There was no anger in his tone, only a quiet strength, tempered by centuries of discipline and the unshakable dignity of his duty. Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, tourist Dolly tried to justify her actions, but the crowd had already turned against her. "It's all on video," some shouted. "This disgrace will follow you forever," others chimed in. She had no choice but to return the feather. Yet, offering a sincere apology proved impossible. Her weak excuses were drowned out by the disapproving murmurs of the spectators. Suddenly, the sharp whistle of the police cut through the commotion. Officers, summoned by outraged witnesses, quickly took control. Dolly and her companion were held accountable for their disrespectful and aggressive behavior. Meanwhile, phones continued recording, ensuring the incident would spread across the internet like wildfire. "Good. Let this serve as a lesson that our guards deserve respect. Shame on them. We must cherish and protect our traditions, not exploit them for cheap attention." Jonathan McFarlane, hearing a brief, flustered "sorry" from Dolly, responded with only a slight nod. He adjusted his hat and retrieved the feather from her trembling hand. Holding it for a moment as though marking the end of the ordeal, he placed it back where it belonged. His composure remained unbroken, and the crowd erupted into applause. At that moment, it became clear to everyone. This was more than just a workplace conflict. It was a victory of enduring tradition over the selfish, consumerist attitude toward culture. As the police escorted the tourists away, the young boy who had hidden behind the RAF veteran ran up to Jonathan. Quietly, he thanked the guardsman for his bravery. Jonathan allowed himself the faintest of smiles, a subtle nod to the boy before resuming his post. His duty remained, to stand firm, upholding the honor and pride of the Royal Guard. The final scene captured by a spectator's camera lingered in the fading light of the evening. The iconic red tunic swayed gently in the breeze as Jonathan stood steadfast once more. In that calm, unyielding figure, the crowd saw a timeless strength, a reminder of what made Britain what it is. "Now I understand how important it is to respect their service. Things were different before, more honor, more gratitude. We can't afford to lose that." With his hat adjusted and the feather restored to its rightful place, Jonathan resumed his vigil. The crowd cheered, condemning the audacity of the tourists while celebrating the Royal Guard's unwavering loyalty to tradition. Thus ended this extraordinary event, leaving a trail of discussions, emotional commentary, and a steadfast conviction. Some things cannot be bought, and the honor of the Royal Guard is one of them.